All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming to the early session at Star Trek. How many of you, this is your first time at Star Trek? Wow, a few. Cool. How many have been to every one of them? A couple. Last time I spoke at Star Trek was the very first one across town. It was pretty awful. We were doing like a remix event, so I was doing someone else's talk, trying to demo on someone else's hardware, and it was kind of a train wreck. But I can assure you this will not be that, because number one, I'm not on a Windows machine this time, and number two, I had no demos in this. So a couple things. I've been given versions of this talk since about 2017, and I thought in 2017 when I started giving this, I had all the answers. And what we're going to find out today is that I'm still learning about this. But, look, here's the big picture. A lot of us have spent years and years and years working on our technical skills, kind of becoming the best at what we can be as developers or QA or whatever role we may have. And then one day, maybe it comes up, maybe someone mentions it, maybe you see other people, but a leadership opportunity comes up, and you start thinking about it. That happened with me, and lots of thoughts went through my head, right? Should I, shouldn't I? What if I love it? What if I hate it? What if I'm not any good at it? So these are some of the things I want to try to answer today. Now, I will tell you that over the years, I've jumped back and forth between the roles. So we're going to talk about that. I want to start with a story. And this is purposely black. So my first official day as a team lead at a big financial tech company up in Michigan. I had been on the team for a couple years, and I took the role of team lead on the same team. I'd been on the team for about 18 months, I guess, and I went through the process, became the leader, and the team was half remote, half on site, but all the remotes, including me, were in town for a week of planning. And again, first official day is me being leader, first official day with everyone all together. And I'd started the morning with my team with a discussion of trust, respect, how we should be supporting each other. And we started our planning session, and things were going pretty well. And I had a team of, at that time, probably 7 or 8. And at one point, I had to leave. I had to step out of the room. So I left my BA in charge, and I went to have another meeting. The meeting I had was with my boss and a peer. So I left the BA in charge, and I left. And within 15 minutes of me leaving that room, I started getting text messages with this being the first one. And this basically says, you need to run planning the hour after discussion about helping each other and being respectful. I get blank. No matter what I ask or do, he's just a jerk. I don't know why I didn't blank that word out, but he's just a jerk. And will be the reason I leave this team. This is coming from my BA at the time. So I'm like, holy cow, I literally just walked out of the room. So this was my first day. And so, give me 1 second here. So I showed my leader my phone, showed him the text, and we walked out. He said, we got to deal with this so I can get back to my team and figure out what happened. And we'll come back to the story, but I just want to set the stage for how things can go as a leader of people. So I'm going to talk about leadership a little bit. So when I think of leadership, I have very specific thoughts about leadership. A lot of us have worked for people like this, that kind of command and control. This is how you're going to do it. This is when you're going to do it. This is how you're going to do it. And that's never been my idea of leadership. I look at this as like a traditional manager, someone that's not a leader. I don't call that person a leader at all. I call that person someone who's trying to just tell people what to do. And I've got a good story about that one too. So I'm all about servant leadership. Servant leadership is I'm here to serve my team. I'm here to protect my team. I'm here to enable my team. I'm here for the team. It's not about me. It's about them. So that's how I was kind of brought up. In his book, Trust-Based Leadership, Mike Ator, a retired Marine Corps officer, says that leadership in its purest and noblest form is always associated with an individual choosing to be responsible for the successful accomplishment of an organization's mission and the welfare of its people and their personal and professional aspirations. I like that. I think that's good. He goes on to say, and I think we can all relate to this, there's a huge difference between being in a leadership role and being a leader. I'm sure we all have worked for people who have been further up the chain, who have the title, who have the authority, who you wouldn't follow out of a burning building, right? I have. So this is kind of what we're going to talk about. This is my career in a timeline. At one point I thought this was a little train wrecky, but then I realized it spans almost 30 years. I think I'm good. I'm going to change things up here a little bit. I didn't get a chance to adjust the slide, but I'm going to speak to a couple of things here. Normally, I would tell you that my leadership journey started kind of in the middle of this, where you actually see it says team leader in 2016. That was about 20 years into my career. But I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I realize, big picture, my journey started way, way before that role. If I go back to my very earliest career, I started professional development in 1995. In 1997 through 2000, I worked for a fantastic team, probably the best. I still look at that as like the best team I've worked with over the years. It was just a great group of people. Everyone knew what they were doing. They were smart. We were working on cool stuff. I was by far the youngest on the team, the least experienced on the team, but I was probably the loudest, most obnoxious voice on the team. Okay, mid-20s. I mean, yeah, that happens. So I was there. So I started in 95. So I start this other gig in 97. I'm there for maybe a year and a half, 2 years. So we're talking maybe 98, 99. And two things happened. A manager role opened, and, well, let's talk that first. So I thought, sure, I can do that. I know I can do that. I can do that better than anyone else on this team, okay? Thankfully, and this is one of the things I want to have be a theme through this. There are people that I'm grateful for who kind of kicked me in the butt and said, you're on the wrong path now, dude. So at that time, I remember being pulled into my very first one-on-one that I could ever remember in my career with my boss. And I sat down, and he shoved, he had printed out an article, and he pushed it across the table to me, and it was about reputation management. And then he said, so I want to swear, I'm not going to swear. He said, if people think you're a jerk, didn't say that, if people think you're a jerk, then you're a jerk. What he was saying is, I was down the wrong path. Okay, now I'm the guy who, outside of my cube, we had big cubes at the time, I had some Metallica lyrics taped to the outside of my cubicle from the song Wasting My Hate. Anyone know it? The lyric is, don't waste your breath on me and I won't waste my hate on you. Okay, that was outside of my cube, along with some Dilbert cartoons and stuff. So I had an attitude, and I knew it. I didn't know it, I guess. Anyway, this boss, Kurt, I still remember that conversation of him saying, man, you need to watch how you do things, how you act, how you behave. Your reputation is everything that you have. And I'm like, okay. And he suggested, and I still recommend this book to this day. In fact, I just reread it again a month ago. He recommended reading Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I remember, I still have my original copy from then, probably 98. All my original underlinings from the book, all the places I highlighted. So I look at my path to leadership started there with that piece of advice. We go on a little bit. I did right after that. I did, and so I figured. I think that me thinking I could do it at the time was very ego-driven, very much like, of course I can do it. And you had 3 years experience. Give me a break. I would have been crushed if I had even been given the opportunity. They would have destroyed me. But so my next job, I actually was a technical team leader, and there was another lesson I learned there. And I'm grateful, again, for the guidance I had of the people that I worked with who had more experience than I did, who had kind of been there and done that before I was there. But I remember technical team lead. I couldn't hire, I couldn't fire, I couldn't do no HR stuff, right? Just pure technical lead. And I had a guy come to me. Now, I'm probably, at that time, I don't know, 27, 28, somewhere in that range. I remember having a guy come to me who wasn't that much younger than me, and he came to me with some personal problems. And I just remember thinking, I am not ready for that. No, right? I can't give someone else advice about their life So I learned something valuable there about kind of how, what I didn't want to do at the time. So technical piece, awesome. But I had some great role models there as well. A guy named Bob just showed this calm confidence about everything he did. This guy named Dan, same kind of thing. He was just a solid technical leader, calm under pressure, all these things that I could look to and say, that I want to get there. So we move on a little bit longer to this 2007 mark. And I was working for, anyone remember the name Pillar? Pillar Technology? Yeah, so I did a gig for Pillar back in the day. And I remember when I interviewed with some great people. Some of you may recognize the names, Dave Donaldson and some people like that. I think James Avery was there at the time. And I got put on a project. And long story short, I ended up being the lead of that project. Now, Dave had recommended when I got hired, don't put him in a leadership position yet. He's not quite ready, okay? I'm friends with Dave to this day. I respect him. I respected what he said back then. But this again, I think there was this little bit of ego that's like, I can do this. Ended up being a major train wreck. So again, I look at that and go, not ready. But I had this guidance from people like Dave and Nyan, and I can never pronounce Nyan's last name because it's about this long. But there were some people, Will Burris, just some people that kind of from this area, kind of from Michigan, that gave me this guidance of, here's what you need to do. Here's how you should approach this. Yes, you were in over your head. Yes, we will help you. All those kinds of things. So then, all this time, I was independent. Now, when I say I worked for Pillar, it was a contract. But I worked for myself for a number of years. And the great thing about that is when I started getting involved in the software development community, speaking, going to conferences, going to things like that. And that's when I met a lot of just amazing leaders that, again, I looked up to these people, Jim Holmes and Mike Wood, and some of you may recognize some of these names, but there were a lot of people like that, Josh Holmes and Brian Prince, even Blankenberg. But a lot of people that I looked up to in the community, because they were community leaders. They were building something. They were inspiring people to come out to events like this. And so I looked at them and I learned. I consider a couple of those still mentors of mine, Jim Holmes and Josh Holmes, not related. But those are two that I still call when I'm having problems, when I'm struggling with something, leadership things, career type things. But I eventually got pulled into, after 14 years of working for myself, and I had these great clients, I had these great community people that I was interacting with. I went to a large financial technology firm in Michigan, and a friend of mine kind of pulled me into that company. And again, another community guy, another person that I knew from the community, another person that I kind of looked up to as being, this guy has these traits about him, these leadership things about him. So this is where I tell people before today that's where I would consider my journey starting. But what I just told you is all these lessons I learned about leadership and about myself and about what I wanted before I even hit there. And that's 20 years into my career at this point, right? So I go to work for this company, and almost immediately, the guy who hired me, Keith, started talking to me about leadership. He's like, I think you'd make a great leader. I think you'd make a great leader of this team you're on that I just hired you onto. And he looked at me and he said to me, you've been independent for so long. You have the ability to stay organized. You have the ability to communicate with clients. You have all of these things. And I said, no. I said, I don't want to, right? Now, if anyone's been independent, you know that could be quite the ride, right? There's feast and famine. There's calling people saying, if you pay me. There's all sorts of things about that. I was just happy to get a steady paycheck when I was at this place. So I went to that place, and again, he started talking to me immediately, and I wasn't taking the conversation seriously. I said no, mainly because I needed to just kind of settle, be somewhere, learn the lay of the land, enjoy the steady paycheck. Probably for the first 18 months, whenever I got paid, I'd be like, I got paid today. And I didn't have to call anybody and say, pay me. Or call someone and have them say, oh, I'm sorry, your invoice got lost on the pile on my desk, right? So for that first year, so I knew I had this milestone that I wanted to make. And so I kind of had a general direction. I wanted to be at this place. I wanted to just kind of settle and just do my thing. And hit that 1 year. The 1 year was a milestone I knew I had to hit. So then comes a day, and Jay, this is what I was talking about. So then comes a day, about a year in, all the remotes were in town. When the remotes come in town, no real work gets done. It's a social week, right? Now, this is all pre-COVID, right? Pre-COVID, and all the remotes came in, and we'd work during the day, but a lot of it was socialization and seeing people you hadn't seen in a while and that kind of thing. But after work, we would hang out. And one night, we were at a bar, believe it or not, we were at a bar drinking. I'm the one in the middle. My friend Jay here was on one side, and on the other side was my boss, Keith. We didn't call them bosses, we called them leaders. I should say that, words matter. My leader, Keith, was on the other side, and they're just yakking. And I told Jay this story yesterday, and I doubt he remembers. I don't think Keith remembers it. I do very distinctly. Jay looks at Keith and said, so when's Mike going to be a leader? And I just cringed. I was just mortified, like, oh my God, what? And Keith Elder. So Elder looks at me, and he just says, it's up to him. It's up to him. So at that point, I started to seriously consider this idea of leadership. I knew it wasn't going to be an easy choice. The big part about this is that just because he asked wasn't enough. Just because he thought I would be good wasn't enough, right? The big piece I needed here, I needed a why. Well, more money. Title. Nah, right? I don't care about titles at all. So I had to put a lot of thought into this. Like, what's going to happen here? I made pro-con lists. I talked to other leaders. I talked to friends. I talked to family. This wasn't a short period of time. This was probably months from the time he said that to me and we started having more serious conversations that I was like, man, I don't know. There's a lot of fear. There's absolutely a lot of fear in that. And I knew taking the role wasn't going to be easy. I knew it for some reasons I'll talk about here. And again, the fear was, what if I do it and I hate it? What if I do it and I'm terrible at it? What if I do it and the team hates me in that role? What if I do it and I hate myself in that role? Right? So I had all these questions of like, I just don't know. To me, it's not this easy. It was not an easy decision. I know a lot of people. In fact, I had people on that team who knew. I had one guy on my team saying, I want to be a VP one day. That's great. He is now. He moved to a different company. He's now VP somewhere. Fantastic. It's never been my motivator is to climb any kind of ladder. This is a great quote from Ben Hunt Davis. It's from a book called Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? It's a fantastic book about a British Olympic rowing team and how they improved to win. I couldn't tell you what year now, but all the things they did. And this is just a great quote. Research suggests that we tend to regret what we haven't done much more than what we have done, even if we screwed up in doing it. I like that. Right? That just makes sense. That I get that. And I put a lot of thought into this why, and I realized that I could do more for my team as their leader than as a day-to-day peer coding with them shoulder to shoulder. Right? I'm an okay dev. But I wanted to serve them in a different way. And that's always been a big part of what I've done is kind of service to others, whether it's speaking like this, whether it's leading user groups, whether it's running conferences, right? There's always been that piece to it. And so I said, okay, sure. Now, I actually had to interview for it. It wasn't just like, okay, you said yes. We asked, you said yes, you're in. Nope. So I had to interview for it. Now, what was cool here, and this is one of the things where the networks you make, both inside of work and outside of work, are so, so important. One of the guys, so I was in, the group I was in at this place was the Center of Excellence. And then I was on a team called the Core Team. And we built all the frameworks and services that the rest of the company used. So we solved like the harder problems, and then it kind of flowed into what the other developers use, logging, encryption, just lots of libraries, lots of things like that. And so in this Center of Excellence, I was surrounded by pretty excellent people. And one of them came to me one day and said, hey, normally I'm involved in these interviews, but for you, I'm not going to be involved in the interview. I'm going to coach you. I thought, that's pretty awesome. So for a few weeks, he coached me. We did SWOT analysis and we just did all these things. And he's like, here's how you should answer these types of questions. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know here, right? Those types of things. So lots of great coaching to get me to the point where I could interview. And now when I interviewed, I knew everyone in the room, right? They were all people in the Center of Excellence that I interacted with every single day. It might have been a little intimidating, right? Like I knew it wasn't a shoe-in. I knew they were going to ask hard questions. They weren't just going to let me pass. But I did. I got through the interview. And in June of 2016, I officially became the leader of that team. And like I said, day one is where that story picks up. The team seemed happy I was stepping into the role, which was fantastic. And I was happy to be given that opportunity. Like this was a team. Most teams at this organization had some had no senior developers. Many had one. I had all senior developers on my team, with the exception of an intern. My team at its biggest was probably 11, so most of those were senior devs. I had a senior BA, and I had this fantastic intern who was just a great, great kid. From Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, by the way, which was always a fascinating, like he knew the background story. He knew the inner circle of the groundhog, which was really cool. He said, if you ever go to Punxsutawney for Groundhog Day, it's a big party in the woods. So, but a great team, fantastic team. But it wasn't all sunshine and roses. There were challenges. So the team I was leading, again, all these fantastic developers, all these seniors, but there was a lot of dysfunction on the team. A lot of that dysfunction was fed from the previous leader, the guy who hired me, who is a close friend and had been a friend for many years. There were lots of things that happened in the months leading up to me taking over. And he would frequently come to me and say, how would you handle this particular issue? Which I thought was kind of cool. And so we had two people on the team in particular. One of them, one of the best software developers I have ever worked with. He does great when you put him off in a corner and say, solve the problem. Okay? Fantastic guy, super smart. I learned more from him about how to code, best code I ever wrote was done pairing with him. Hands down. He taught me how to do a proper code review. Like to this day, I follow the model that he set. I still talk to him frequently. He just hit me up a couple days ago, actually. The other one was my senior BA. These two could not get along ever. Because what would happen is we'd be on stand-ups. She ran stand-up. And we did the whole 3 questions thing. And she would get to him and say, what did you do yesterday? And he would say, I don't remember. And she would say, what do you mean you don't remember? I don't remember. Okay. And she would start getting upset. He would be like, ooh, I provoked a reaction. And he would start poking. Right? Not right. And there were times where I could get on stand-up. This was before we didn't do things on video. Most stand-ups we did were just on a phone, right? We had a conference line for my team. We'd call on this conference line. And there were days I could connect, and just by his breathing, I could tell if things were going to go sideways or if things were going to go well, right? But there was a lot of that, a lot of this, like just headbutting. And so go back to that first day. It was those two. The BA sent me the text. He was the one who was the jerk. So I'm heading back to my desk, or back to that conference room, and I'm texting others, and I'm getting texts from other people on the team. I'm like, what is going on? And day one. And I get back to the conference room, and it's empty. Everyone cleared out. I'm like, this is amazing. So I started kind of collecting information, like, okay, what happened, right? I had some people that, I could trust for like the peer review of what happened. And so kind of found out, well, by this time, my leader, Keith, was fed up with both of them because he'd been dealing with them for months. These are the circumstances where he would say, how would you handle them not getting along? He said, we're going to take them to HR. They're going to HR today. Now, we didn't call them HR. They were TRS, Team Relations Specialists, right? I have to say that because saying HR sounds weird to me. We took them to TRS. So about 2 hours, 3 hours maybe passed between the time of the incident and the time where we went into this office. Now, during this time, I made mistakes. I made obvious mistakes. I didn't talk to either one of them. There's a big mistake. So we go into this office. The worst feeling I've ever had in my life was walking into this office. They're both visibly upset. This is stupid. Almost in tears, right? Awkward, horrible. Just I felt bad. They felt worse. And I immediately knew I made a mistake. Right. As soon as I walked in that office, I'm like, this was not right. I do not remember The outcome of that meeting, I do not remember anything that was said in that meeting. I remember later that day talking to both of them. And he said to me, they both probably said roughly the same thing. That was effed up. What you didn't know is that in that intervening time, the two of us talked. The two of us worked it out. We both realized that this behavior that we trigger off each other. We both talked about it. We both said, we need to be better. We can't do this anymore. They had figured it out. I took them to HR. What I didn't know is that he had been in that office not long before. She had been in that office not long before. They both thought they were getting fired. So to this day, I still feel, it was awful. I did apologize to both of them. We did talk it out. They did get better. They figured it out. It didn't take us going into HR to make that scene better. But big picture, people are hard. People are hard. So when I talk about leadership here, I talk about two types of leadership. Big L leadership, people manager. Little L leadership, anybody in here can do. It's your actions, it's your words, it's those types of things, right? You lead by example, you do the right thing. Anybody can be little L leader. Big L leader is when you have people that report to you, that you know their salary, you are responsible for their compensation, you're responsible for hire, fire, all those types of things. It's a different world when you have people. People are hard. Because everybody, they're all different, right? I had 10 people now that all had different motivations, that all had different things going on in their life, that all had all this stuff going on. Was I necessarily prepared for that? No, but I think I was better equipped then than I had been in those previous instances that I talked about. The team, even though the thing that changed on the team was me moving from senior developer to team lead, technology. That was my title, team lead, technology. That was the only thing that changed. The team still went through that forming, storming, all the phases as everyone was trying to figure out, okay, what's this new world look like with Mike being here now, and how are things going to work? I had to figure it all out. They had to figure it out. Now, many of the people on the team, we had been friends for years before any of us worked there. So now all of a sudden, one day, bit gets flipped in the system and I know how much they make. Now, a lot of people don't care. I don't care, right? But a lot of people care. And there's a lot of things that I was not prepared for. You have a lot of difficult conversations just from the go. I could be, well, let's flip to this. Probably 3-4 months in to my tenure as leader on that team, had a one-on-one with my BA, and she was upset. And she said to me, no one is my advocate. No one is being my advocate. Now, I'd been a developer for 20 years. I could write code. I could do those things. I thought I knew how to lead a team, but that was like a turning point for me. That was like oh, you're right. Because I would be in meetings with her, and she would say something and either get talked over or essentially shouted down. And no one was, again, like she said, no one was advocating for her ideas, for the things that she was talking about. So that was a flip for me of like, okay, yes. So my attitude changed that day too on, okay, this is really what I need to do. Other difficult conversations that you don't expect. 1 minute, I'm talking to someone, they're talking about the happiest moment of their life, right? Who knows what it was? Next minute, someone calls saying, my dad just died. Those are hard conversations to have, no matter what. But when you go from one extreme to the other, And you're just, so getting into leading people is hard because you just never know. How many parents are in the room? Any of you not just making it up day to day? Right? Our kids are 21 and 23 now. I don't know that there's ever a day where it was like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. You know? The same thing for me goes with leadership. Like, a lot of it is just kind of making it up as you go, trying to do the right thing. And that's the thing, trying to do the right thing. I was a remote leader, so I had kind of a disconnect with some of my on-site team members. But what I decided after a few months is, this is dumb. Why is half the team remote? Why can half the team roll out of bed, go to their desk, and they're there, while the other team has to deal with Detroit traffic for an hour, find a place to park, go up to the 14th floor, find their desk, right? So a few months in, I flipped the bit, after talking to them, of course, and made them all remote. Even the people that were only an hour away, they thanked me. They thanked me when COVID hit because they were already prepared. There was nothing they had to do. But those remote one-on-ones were hard. A lot of people, even though we could turn on video, they didn't. They couldn't see body language. And you're not around for the day-to-day banter. So leadership in general, there are good times, obviously, and there are bad times. I just had someone leave my team recently. He had his reasons. I was bummed. It's not what I expected. It happened. I was supportive. It was just kind of a low point. Like, it stinks that you're leaving, but, good for you. I wish you all the success. And just looking at that one slice, my time at this financial tech company, things were going really well. I think I was doing pretty well. The feedback from my team was pretty solid. Surveys that went out, I think my team was never the type to blow smoke of any kind, so I think they were honest. So I think I got some really good feedback from the team. I had 100% participation from my team. In fact, at one point, TRS, the team relations, said, "You've got some of the highest scores we've ever seen." So either my team was just kissing my butt, or I was doing a good job. Take your pick, which one you think it was. I don't know. But I had a lot of things to do, because you go from being this individual contributor, writing code, if you're a developer, right, knocking out, making commits, knocking out PRs, building features. You can look and say, I built that. Right before I took the role, I said, maybe at the interview, I said, what's the measure of success for someone in my role? Valid question, right? And someone said, the morale of your team. I'm like, okay, how do you measure that? But I went from coding one day to all of a sudden, my days revolved around Outlook and chat and meetings, and my world changed significantly. And I remember it was probably a month or so, where I struggled with that, because it's like, what value am I providing today if I'm not? Because when you're building features, when you're submitting PRs, you can look and go, that's what I did today. When you're a leader, it's much, much, much fuzzier than that. So I struggled with that. But the cool thing was, this place had some of the best leadership development that I've experienced, and I doubt I'll ever experience again. If you're an aspiring leader at this particular company, they have a similar program to what I'm about to describe. But they had what was called a journey, which is kind of lame. And what I was told, and this is something to think about, what I was told, step one, if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead other people. So I went through some courses on time management, on email management, on how to leave a voicemail, right? All those types of things. So I had to do that first. Now, I was lucky, like Keith had identified early on, I'd been doing a lot of this stuff for years, so it wasn't too bad. But then, when I officially joined the ranks of leadership at this company, I was immediately enrolled in an 8 or 9 month, I don't remember exactly how long, 8 or 9 month program, leadership development program that met monthly. Walked into the room, there's, what was there? Probably 50 new leaders starting at roughly the same time, all enrolled, randomly assigned teams. I knew no one on my team. In the first 2 minutes, we had to come up with a team name. The next 2 minutes, we had to come up with a touchdown dance.
Right up your alley.
Not up my alley at all. And then over the course of, no. Over the course of those months, we had classes on, emotional intelligence, and just all sorts of things. So every month we would have kind of the coursework, like here's the theme, here's the thing we're going to teach you guys, here's this big piece of information. We had projects we had to do. It was really about building networks. It was about those things, but I learned a lot from that. In fact, I've been gone from this company now for 8 years, and I still, my wife will say, I still talk about it every day because it was such a great experience. But I did have these feelings because it's hard. It's hard. So I was told when I started, you should be able to dedicate 40% of your time to coding. That never happened. Even if I could code, I would take myself out of any critical path. That's important. As a leader, I cannot put myself in a critical path for anything because I never know day to day what I'm going to have to be doing. I'd like to think I could dedicate a day to coding, but a lot of times that doesn't happen. As a leader, you're expected at most places to be involved in bigger things, bigger initiatives, right? You're expected to lead up. You're expected to interact with your peers and do things at that level. My team wasn't those 10 people. My team was the peers, right? The other leaders that were at the same level as me. I had my team. I loved my team. But I struggled with this. Now, I would still be involved in code reviews. I had to do something. We'd be in design. Lots of photo memories come up now of design meetings we were in, and we're at whiteboards and these kinds of things. And that was fantastic. So I kept up on that. But I started putting a lot of expectations on myself. They started putting I don't know that they did. I put a lot of expectations on myself, and I started to feel, man, I don't know. This is hard. I struggled with those bigger things of driving something bigger, right? These bigger initiatives. I loved working with my team. I was not a ladder climber. I've already pointed this out. I loved those times where I collaborated with my team and doing those design sessions or whatever. Those were the best times for me. So I knew there was going to be a point which I had to make a decision again. Now, I was an idiot. I fully admit I was an idiot. I could have stayed there. I could have stepped down and gone to another team. Would have been great. Maybe I would have gotten one of the buyouts they offered a few months ago to the employees. But instead, I decided, okay, I'm gonna go somewhere else. Anyone seen Band of Brothers? A few? Okay. Band of Brothers is about this unit that fought in World War II. And there's a scene that resonates with me because of my experience with this team. Now, of course, we didn't, you can't compare the two events, but something he said when he was, this leader of this unit was promoted, he's like, what's going to happen to my team? Right? He said, what's going to happen to my company? What's going to happen to Easy Company? And that was one of the hardest things for me because I love these guys. That team, all of them, the team was amazing. And that was the biggest struggle of like, what's going to happen? And eventually I had to put that aside and I had to do what was best for me, but that was the hardest thing. But I did. I decided at some point that now, if we talk about those influences that I had, We talked about Kurt at that first job who said, dude, you're being a jerk. If people see you as a jerk, that's it, right? Manage your reputation. I had this guy named Bob, I had this guy named Dan, who kind of showed me this cool, calm, collected leadership style. I had all these community leaders I could look at and go, yeah. There's just a lot of people that when I made these lists of all these people. If you've ever read Meditations from Marcus Aurelius, the first book is it's gratitude, thanking all these people. So I did this recently. And this particular job, there's a dozen. There's Keith, who brought me on, who kind of taught me what not to do, right? There was John, who took me aside and said, I'm going to mentor you with this. He's also this calm, cool, collected. He also showed me that bow ties can still be cool. He still wears bow ties every day. There was a guy named Steve. He was the original leader of our Center of Excellence. He's the one who just, again, this calm confidence, this very supportive, Kareem and Gajan, there's just so many of them that when I came out of there, I was, number one, a better person, but a better leader by far because of what they taught me. Don't discount the lessons you can learn from people, even if, when I look at some of them, it was more, I could look at them as an example. It's not like they sat me down and said, Mike, here's some advice. So, I could watch them. I could watch how they handled problems on their teams. So think about those types of things if you're just starting in this as a career. If you've been in it for 20, I've been in it for 30 years, for crying out loud. I still learn from people. I look at my current role, and there's a couple of people who are absolutely those models that I look at. But I did leave, and I thought I was tired of leadership, but somehow my next gig was director of engineering. Now, I will tell you, that was a 100% ceremonial, BS title. It was a local consulting company, Matched Pattern. Anyone? Matt Darby, his whole group. So I went to work for Matched Pattern. I had known Matt for years, and he's like, "We're going to give you a good title, so when you go to the next place, right, we've done something good for you." So I was there for a little bit. Interesting place. Then I really decided I need to just go back. Well, that thing imploded, right? I love Matt. Nothing against Matt. Did not work out for anyone that was involved in that. So I went to be an individual contributor at a great product company based in Charlotte, North Carolina, working on commercial software, SQL Server performance and analysis tools. Awesome, hard work, great people, smaller company, loved it. Then this happened. This sucked. I'm sorry to say. So I was there. I had just celebrated my year anniversary. Just. And then they furloughed 50 people. And they're like, we'll bring you back in 90 days. Okay? Nope. I started looking immediately, which we'll talk about. But it was a great job, and I was loving kind of being this individual contributor again, helping with the team, kind of bringing any leadership I needed to when I needed to. But we were furloughed. That was in April. So really, right as COVID, as the lockdowns were starting. So that told me they had problems long before COVID. And they furloughed us. They said they're going to bring us back in 90 days. They finally brought people back in August. And of those 50 people, they brought 5 back. So the first day I was furloughed, I reached out on social media. Networking is important. Build your network. Develop relationships. It's not just meeting someone, shaking their hand. Develop relationships. I tweeted, back when it was still Twitter, what do you do now? I don't know, is it still called a tweet? Oh. But so I had reached out, And a friend of mine, a great friend, one of the smartest people that I've ever worked with, reached out to me. And I'd worked with him on a project years before. Reached out and said, you should come here where I'm at and lead one of my teams. I'm like, really? Okay. So I did. I applied. I went to this place. Is that the right one? Yep. So I became principal analyst at this big company, Big Tobacco, like parent company of Philip Morris. You walk into a gas station, 3/4 of that back wall was us. Okay. Now, I missed a part in the interview when he said, "Come lead a team." I thought, okay, cool. What it ended up being was I was responsible for an offshore team, third-party contracting company. So I was responsible for wrangling these. So to me, it was a different kind of leadership than what I was used to. I learned a ton, loved it. I love working with other cultures, other places, especially from India, because it'd be like, we're on holiday tomorrow. Oh, what's this holiday? Tell me about it. I'm really curious. I'm really interested, right? And we'd have these long discussions about the culture and about the language and about, and look, anyone that can speak 3 languages is automatically pretty high in my book. They were great, but it was Big Tobacco. Never have been a user, never will be a user. It was hard. It's weird to be on calls where people are smoking and vaping. It's the culture. I was told that if I were on site, one of the perks would be a pack a day. So it was different. We'd be on town hall, global town halls. It's a big company. We had global town halls, and the CEO had the Marlboro Man behind him. We'd be on calls saying, how can we sell more product? This is one of those times where it's like, I want the stock to do well, but I kind of don't want the stock to do well. You know what I mean? Like, if we're doing that, that means people are buying. I'm not judging anybody. I was there for a bit, learned a lot, especially the offshore component. Great time. But because they had outsourced / offshored 99.9% of all their dev work, I wasn't supposed to code. I did. I built a bunch of APIs, but there were long periods of just pure boredom because there was nothing to do because the offshore team had it under control and they were working on stuff. Anyway, so I did end up leaving Big Tobacco, and a friend of mine, got a few minutes left, a friend of mine said, hey, come to my company. It's kind of a train wreck. Come, we think we could use your help. So what I learned there is people have different tolerances for train wrecks. No, I think he said dumpster fire. He said it's a dumpster fire. Okay? So is that better or worse than a train wreck? I don't know. So he said, come here. So a couple things. He has a much higher tolerance for that than I do. The way I described that place was a train carrying dumpster fires that crashed into another dumpster fire. I was there a week, and there were layoffs. And people found out because of the PowerPoint presentation that was given of names. And some of those people were supposed to be on my team. And I reached out to my manager, and I said, WTF? He's like, yep, surprise to me too. Oh, okay. This is a great start. This is the only place I've ever worked where I've heard executives trash talk developers. Why are the developers so terrible? Why can't they get anything done? They're awful. New guy, fresh eyes, maybe it's you. It probably is you. I was there about a month, had a one-on-one with the CTO. He's like, have you thought, because I started as a principal dev, right? Again, kind of individual contributor, but at a little higher scope. I was going to be kind of a couple of teams, couple of products. And he said, hey, there's an open dev manager role. Like, with your background, why don't you do that? I let the ego get in the way. And I said, sure, I'll do that. And I realized pretty quickly I was making no headway. Like there was this culturally, I could make zero headway. So a couple of years ago, a friend of mine saw me kind of being angsty on Facebook and said, hey, you know what, come to our summer party. Come hang out. Free beer. Come hang out and talk. I went to this summer party. This is for improving. Our spring party's coming up, by the way. And I went there and I talked and I met people. And that led to another meeting, which led to a job offer. So what's awesome about this particular role that I have now, is the arrow? Yeah, okay. What I love about this role right now is I'm a principal consultant. I have people that report to me, but I'm still an individual. I'm still billable. I'm still technical. I'm still working on projects. So I get the best of both worlds. I love it. I have a team I can help develop. I can help grow their skills. I can help do all those things that I love to do, but I get to do work too. Like, not that that's not work. But I get to do technical stuff. So I get to keep the technical act sharp. I get to do the leadership stuff that I love, which is just awesome. It's a great place. It's a great opportunity for me. I'm kind of loving the vibe of it. So there's always going to be this choice, this decision for me on which way I want to go, and probably for a lot of you, which way do I want to go? Pros and cons on both sides. But in the last couple of minutes here, I do want to give just a few things to think about if you're considering embarking on your own leadership journey. Title doesn't make you a leader, right? Your actions do. So anyone in this room can be a leader, right? Whether it's your church, whether it's a community group, right? Whether it's at work, you don't need the title. Show it by your actions, right? Do the right thing, set the example, be there when other people need you, help other people grow, right? I think that's key. So making the other step to actual people leader, that's a different decision. Know your why. You have to know your why. If it's just because it's more money, is that good enough? Maybe for you it is. Hey, I get a raise, I get a title. If that's your why, awesome. But think about it. Think about why you're doing this thing that you're doing. Why do you want this thing? Why are you chasing this thing? Simon Sinek has a great book, What's Your Why? Start with your why. Got 2 books, I don't know. He's got a great YouTube, watch the YouTube video on it, watch the TED Talk. Know your why. Work on your emotional intelligence, super key. Emotional intelligence is like 60% of success in people at a certain level, right? Like it's the people skills, right? Think about office space. I've got people skills. Work on your emotional intelligence. Lose your ego. I like to invert this. Be humble. Be humble. It's not about you. Leadership is not about it. Most things aren't. But lose your ego. It's not about you. It's about your team. It's about helping them grow, helping them be better. Find a mentor. You can't do this on your own. I listed off a bunch of people that helped me. I didn't do any of this alone. Find that mentor. Seek feedback. Seek feedback. Be willing to take the feedback, but understand that it is just feedback. It is just someone's opinion. You don't have to take everything someone says, but be willing to seek that feedback and own your mistakes. Own your mistakes. Don't hesitate to say, I'm sorry. I think that's really important as a leader. You're not perfect. Don't try to act like you are. I work for Improving. We have a booth. Come to the booth, visit us. That leads to our website. Great company here in Columbus, Cleveland, all over the U.S. Bunch of improvers here today. Here's my contact information. Thank you guys so very much for coming today. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your Stir Trek.